In the beginning, God creates the heavens and the earth in 6 days. He makes Adam and Eve, who spend their days with God until they give in to temptation by eating from a forbidden tree. Sin enters the world, and things get so bad that God floods the earth and starts over with Noah and his family. Years later, God calls Abraham to follow him with the promise to make Abraham the father of a great nation. Abraham obeys, and God gives him a son, Isaac. Isaac's son Jacob has 12 sons. Joseph, Jacob's favorite, becomes second in command of Egypt. God uses him to save his entire family and Egypt from starvation. Hundreds of years later, the Israelites are slaves in Egypt. Moses is called to lead the Israelites out of slavery. Joshua takes over after Moses and leads the people into the promised land. After Joshua, God raises up judges, temporary military leaders like Deborah, Gideon, and Samson, who protect and fight for God's people. The people tire of this leadership, and they call for a king. God gives Israel King Saul, King David, and then King Solomon. But it's all downhill from here. The people rebel. The kingdom of Israel is divided, and everyone turns their back on God. Prophets like Elijah, Isaiah, Micah, and Jeremiah warn that if people don't repent of their sins, there will be consequences. But the people ignore their warnings. The divided kingdoms are conquered, and God's people face captivity in foreign lands. People like Daniel show great courage and stand up for God when no one else does. Some of the exiled people return to the promised land, but for 400 years, God is silent. No prophets, no miracles, and no angel visitations. But then, the silence is broken when Jesus is born. He lives a perfect life, teaches truth, and performs miracles, proving He is God. He shows us the full extent of God's love by taking our place and dying on the cross for our sin. He is placed in a grave, but 3 days later, Jesus rises again, conquering sin and death. His followers travel the world, sharing the good news of His love and starting churches. We now are part of this story, and we have the chance to change the world and share His love, because one day He will crack open the sky and He will return. It's the greatest story ever told.
And whatever's left of Jerusalem, help yourselves! This way, Daniel. Will we ever return to Jerusalem? Jeremiah promised that one day we would. In the meantime, what do we do? Just bow our heads and serve this monster.
So anytime you say, I believe I have accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and personal Savior, He takes you off the sin and He comes to stand it. And so God Himself imputes or imparts or releases His own kind of righteousness.
You need the Holy Spirit. You need Jesus Christ. You need to believe in the one He has sent.
Stay under the canopy of the Holy Spirit. Enjoy your week. Interesting movie just seen on your screens on GTV Live, Your Religion and Culture channel. Once again, let me just remind you that you are welcome to the most authentic and authoritative Bible discussion platform on TV, the Bible series that is known on GTV Live, Your Religion and Culture channel. Vows has actually been our discussion, our focal point of discussion over the past 4 weeks. Today we get to continue and do the final part discussion on the subject area of biblical vows. Two gentlemen for now are here to help me do a discussion into the subject I've just introduced to you. A third guest I'm expecting to join us pretty shortly. For now, we have Bishop Ishmael Ejiabuaji of the Victorious Light Chapel, Bawe, just by me. Yes, that's him. Papa, you're most welcome.
Thank you, Fred.
Right. The next to him is my own Papa Reverend David Nikwe, Victory Bible Church International Breakthrough Sanctuary, Kwema, Damfa. I think I have to add that almost every now and then just to qualify where he's coming from. Damfa city within the city. That's where I'm also coming from.
With different temperature.
Yes, you see. Gentlemen, you're most welcome.
Thank you.
We've been having a discussion on vows for the past 4 weeks now. Papa was part of the second discussion. He wasn't part of the first and third discussion. Today, I pray we get to capture almost everything we need to capture and lay down the curtains on vows. So, Papa, you were with us within the last discussion. Can you just run us through whatever we did?
Okay. Thank you very much. So, viewers, as he mentioned, we have had about 4 discussions on biblical vows. This is the 5th one. And we basically looked at what biblical vows are. And although we are talking about biblical vows, it also extends to other vows. Yeah. And we look at what it is. Basically, it's a pledge to do something. And we realized that we define it as you get to the levels of seriousness to that is attached onto the pledge. Then it transforms from vows, from promises, vows to pledges, promises, pledges, vows, oaths, and then it goes on like that. So besides that, we also let's visit a few of the key scriptures we stood on. We looked at Ecclesiastes chapter 5, which cautions us our attitude towards vows. So we should not be so hasty in vowing. If you open your mouth and you say something, you must act, even if it hurts. So, and it also said something, Ecclesiastes chapter 5 verse 3 tells us that if we vow, 2 things we must do. Number 1, we must make sure that we don't delay in fulfilling our vow, and we must ensure that we also fulfill it. Besides that, we looked at certain a few examples of vows that were made, and there are even circumstances under which we make vows. We also looked at the right ways of making vows. For instance, under certain circumstances, as we quoted David in Psalm 66 verse 13-14, that he said he was going to pay his vow, that he vowed in the day of trouble. The same way Jonah chapter 2 verse 9, also Jonah also said that I'll pay my vow, and it was a vow he made when he was in the belly of the whale and prayed to God for a deliverance. Besides that too, we saw 1 Samuel chapter 1 verse 10, Hannah wanting a child in desperation also vowed unto God that if you give me a child, I'll give it back to you. So it has been circumstances under which people felt they were hard pressed and they really needed something. So they had to pledge their commitment to the discussion or the agreement they were having with God. Besides that, we also looked at, like you said, the circumstances under which, although we have been cautioned in the book of Ecclesiastes that when you speak, whatever you have spoken binds you, and even Numbers chapter 30 verse 1 and 2 also says that the ones you speak, you are bound your soul with it. However, the same Numbers also give certain conditions under which said that if the vow is not fulfilled, God forgives you. And what are the conditions? Number 1, it speaks about a daughter who is under the roof of the father, who goes to vow something, and then the father is not in agreement. So we looked at it as a minor doing something that you are not really aware or understand fully that you are doing, that your father may not agree, because so far as you are with your father, we assume that. Besides that, to a woman who is married, if a wife makes a vow and the husband does not also agree to it, and because of that it has to be revoked, Bible tells us that under such conditions God will forgive you. However, it spoke about a divorced person or a single unmarried person or a widow free of his or her words, which means that you have the capacity to speak, and whatever you speak should be executed. What we saw over there that some of us tried bringing out is that you see that although God does not like breaking of vows, he gave some of those conditions to preserve the family. God would not want to break the family. Where a wife had gone to church, has gone to vow, the husband is not in agreement and other things, and because you feel that you are under obligation to fulfill it, and your husband will also not want it to be done, then it becomes a tug of war. Those such things have a tendency and the propensity to break our houses and families. So we saw that under such circumstances, God was prepared to forgive if it's not fulfilled. Maybe because you say a recap, I would just pick it from this point, and then
we can just move on from there.
But one thing we also mentioned, which was at the tail end, and circumstance under which we could vary and other things, we also touched on Malachi chapter 2. We couldn't really zero into it. The 15 and 16, which talks about God frowning on divorce. I spoke about conditions under which, if you are single or divorced and other things, God expects you to fulfill your vow. It's maybe registering that once we talk about the divorce or something, God may be, sides with divorce or approves it or something. Those were things that at the tail end we could not really.
Okay, so that is the point I want to start off from today. I don't know whether you'll be kind enough to just introduce us before I bring Bishop in, because you brought us that same area. Under the listed conditions you give, I mean, in the case of a minor, in the case of a wife, a divorced person, a single person, are these conditions, I mean, added to marital vows permissible? I mean, is one permitted to vary the terms of a marital vow?
Okay, Fred, this is a tricky and a thorny area.
Yes, I asked because, I mean, it looks like it's become a trend. I mean, Christians, very, very known, prominent ones, I mean, are divorcing, and it looks like it's okay. It's okay, because if my father at the top is doing it, and as young as I am, I see a problem, I think I should also run away from it. I mean, since...
Okay, Fred, just as I said, it's a really tricky area and very thorny, and but we pray God will give us a wisdom. We should be able to, like you always say. We should be able to tackle it anyway. But perhaps permit me to pick it from where I'm just trying to recollect my last points in the our last discussions. You see, we really spoke against, if you could recollect, young men going in every now and then.
I love you episode and all that. Yes,
and
don't
then
make promises
promising 10 people, you marry everyone, and unfortunately in the same church. So at the end of the day, you keep on breaking people's hearts. See, some of these things, apart from the biblical stance on divorce that we'll discuss pretty soon, we should also look at the moral sides, because I've seen people whose lives have been damaged and shattered because of people who had gone in with a promise to marry, or they have just married and they have just jilted the people overnight. Some have gone to the psychiatric hospital. It has led to emotional problems, depressions, and other things. So from the moral perspective, anyone who is also looking at this must also be very sensitive in that angle, that we must not just get up and jump into pulling out of relationships anyhow. However, I said that it's a tricky area because now let's look at scriptures, and then maybe it may help us. You see in scripture that there have been instances where divorce has been allowed in the Mosaic law. And even in Jesus' time, he was also confronted with that question as you are asking me. But Jesus answered them. We will read Mark chapter 10, verse 1 up to wherever you can get. And then even Matthew chapter 19. This question was posed to Jesus. And Jesus said that, they said, is it good for a man to divorce the wife? and Jesus told them what the standard was, that in the beginning he created man and woman, and they are supposed to marry. And then say, God, Jesus made a statement emphatically in Matthew chapter 19 that what God had put together, no man should put asunder. So that is the standard. That's the biblical standard. And we see from the Old Testament, Genesis chapter 2, that God gave Eve to Adam, and we never saw them divorcing in any way. When they were before in the presence of the Lord, they were together. Even when they were sinning, they sinned together and went together, and the bond was there. However, the people asked a follow-up question to Jesus, that why did Moses then allow to have a divorce certificate? But Jesus answered it clearly, that it was Moses allowed it because of the hardness of the heart of the people. So I see that anywhere there's a break in marital vow, I don't think God is endorsing it, but the cause and the problem is with man.
Right.
I'll say it emphatically. I always say that I am married and I heard God clearly the marriage. If anything goes wrong, I won't blame God. I'll blame us. You see, so allowed it, and we should look at the words being used. You say the King James would say Moses suffered you or allowed it. So man may allow. That is my personal position. Man may allow, but it doesn't mean that God allows it. So if you read Malachi chapter 2, verse number 15 and 16, it says that you should not put away the wife of your youth, and it described that act as treachery. It's very treacherous to do that. The second point is that he also, in verse 16, he said that God hates divorce, which means that God frowns on it. So although under certain circumstances, men of God may allow it, it still stands that God frowns on it. We must be clear about it. However, I'm saying that it's a sensitive area we must be able to deal with very well. I am not divorced, and I have not divorced before. So sometimes you don't know what people had gone through, what had led to it. So I believe that due to things that were happening, that Moses was aware of and other things, out of his human wisdom and other things, sometimes he allowed some of these things to happen. And if you even take hypothetical situations and circumstances, you know, this was it last year, I read in the papers where somebody was getting married to another in a church, and whilst they went on in the before the altar, before they could exchange the vows, CID came to arrest the man. You read it? Right. So as the man was claimed to be a robber. So for instance, if some of these things were not declared, you do not know the full facts of the case. I'm saying it's sensitive. Sometimes we lambast people. I don't really side with divorce, but I'm saying that when we want to lambast people, we should be careful. It doesn't make it right anyway, but we should be careful. But these are some of the practical circumstances under which some of these things sometimes can happen. Because this is, I was not aware, and although certain things were hidden from me, then I go and exchange the vows. And now the person is my wife, now is the person's my husband. What do? I happen to be helping somebody years back, and the lady told me that they had given birth to a young guy, and the lady was telling me that he suspects the guy is a robber. The lady, because he said the guy goes out, comes back late. Sometimes the clothing that is put there to be washed is tainted with blood and other things. So you see, under some of these circumstances, so in the wisdom of men, say that this may not inure to your benefit, because if this man is even arrested, you will also be charged as a culpable as conspiring with such a person. So divorce happening under many a lot of circumstances that we cannot really get up and judge. So I, on that note, will go by what Jesus did in John chapter 8 verse 5 about the woman who had committed adultery. And when they had brought her with evidence that this woman had committed adultery, what is the law saying? The law said that stone the person to death. But Jesus said, who had not sinned before, he who has not sinned before should first cast a stone at the person. So God, I read somewhere, I chanced on this, that God hates divorce, but loves the divorcee.
Right.
See?
Right.
So we must not just jump and in it. Sometimes when you hear the reasons why people have divorced, sometimes they are very trivial. You see, so we must not just jump to be divorcing, but as much as possible, whatever God hates, God really hates it, and we must not try to really institutionalize it.
Right.
So that is what I'll say. We must just be careful, and then we should know the circumstances under which. But I don't think, on that note, I don't think that marital vows must be varied.
Right. Bishop, that is Papa's view. What's yours?
Thank you.
Right.
And greetings to the precious listeners. For this topic we are handling is very delicate, complex, challenge, and within that we have a very Herculean task there. Papa has said it all. That Fred is very challenging and difficult when it comes to divorce, vows and other things. It's a very complex area. Papa has said it that we are not here speaking so that it will affect anybody, but we are all sharing views and ideas. But one thing, I thank God, Papa, through prayers and grace, he went through, he has never been divorced. But I have been through challenge, but it's my personal experience. And son, you were compelled to go out because your life is at stake and other things. And then some also divorced out of ignorance. Because they didn't understand what marriage is. And they enter into marriage because they are mature. I'm 30. I'm 30 something. I'm 30, I go under it. Even the vows will lead people to vow. They don't know the implications and the challenges of the vow. Papa said one thing in Malachi, God said, I hate divorce. I came to a point and I realized that I must hate what God hates. So marriage is about decision. And there's difference between vows and oath. A vow is between two people inviting God to reinforce. So an oath, that cursed be me if I did not fulfill this promise. May God kill me or deal with me treacherously. Now when you come to the area of marriage, there are many stages of marriage, different types of marriage. The ordinance marriage, the Christian marriage, the Islamic marriage, the traditional marriage, and other things. And they are all marriages. But are we ready to pay the price? Even if it's not a vow. Papa said, you go around promising women, I'll marry you, I'll marry you, I'll marry you, I'll marry you. And then later I said, I said it, but words has influence. And you pay price of what you say. But even God said, I've heard what you are saying, and whatever you are saying, that's what I will do to you. Even God said it. And then, when you break marital vow, in 2 Samuel chapter 12, verse 10 to 12, when David has an affair and killed Uriah, and they have an affair with Bathsheba, God said, you did it in secret. I will do it till broad daylight. You have break your marital vow, and you have taken somebody's wife. He said, broad daylight, I will let person close to you do it to you. There are consequences and implications, and the consequences and punishment of it. You may have your way out now, but tomorrow is waiting for you. And so we must know before we enter in. Some people, due to medical reasons, due to unfaithfulness and other things, you are compelled to come to a point you have to bow out. I remember somebody, I was there and God revealed a person to me. And I said, leave your house. Don't sleep in the house for 3 days. Say, oh, but it's my matrimonial. I said, that's what the Lord said I should say to you. The person left the house, and then the next second day, robbers came to the house, break every door, searching for the man. The man is not in the house. They did not take one pin. There's money in the drawer. They didn't take it. They are looking for the man. And it's not in the house. As to prophetic direction, the man walked out, and that saved his life. They end up in court, and then they have to issue divorce because the other partner walked there, and she has never had any remorse of repenting or changing his idea or giving a second chance. No. They ask the person how much. He mentioned the figure huge. I'm looking. They have to bargain other things. As I'm ready to back up. Why there's 2 children involved? Other things. No amount of advice could change. One thing we should know is this. God say I hate divorce, because whatever you are doing, was a marital vow, is 2 people inviting God to reinforce what they are saying. And so you said, till death do us apart. Then death has not happened. Then you yourself, you have back up. Fred, you know one thing, you can pregnant a woman, you give birth to 10 children, but it's not your wife. 7 children is not your wife. It is only when you see the family, they give you a list of whatever their customs, you presented it, and then when you present it, still your marriage is not full. Some people said, some people are saying the road, like, remember, I heard the Christian marriage, they are marrying 3-4 times. You go and see the family, then you go this thing, then pastor and whatever. Let me say to you, you see the family, and on human realm, you have seen the family, they have accepted this is marriage. But for you to go to the altar, any marriage that you take it to the altar, you have invited God to reinforce. And whatever God is involved, He's holy. The main holy is that one kind, one mind, one color. God has not changed. And so if you are not ready to fulfill your vows, don't take your marriage to God. If you take it to God, you have invited a problem to yourself. Why? Because my marriage got is in. At that time, just I conducted engagement. I was just running a taskata, doing my own thing. And now I married and take my wife that I'm with, my current wife, to the altar. And I'm having just a single child with a woman that we could not be together, but it's only engagement, no wedding. And I was praying that I wanted to go back to the old wife, because when I see the new one, in fact, there's difference. But one midnight I was praying, and I went to the presence of the Lord, and then I saw the one that we could not marry, but with one child, and I wanted to hold her, and then the hand of God struck her, and she met it before me, and the Lord said, whatever you bring to my presence, forever shall it stand. I hate divorce. That one you give birth to her, but you do not marry her. Fred, you can give birth to 7-10 children with a woman, and you thought you are not a husband. And we should know that. Now, why there are conditions and exemptions about marriages and other things, Fred, there are still, but whatever should happen till death do us apart. And we have never, the church has never taken time to educate the church and the church members that if you dare vow, then stick to your vow. Because whatever you stick, it's like the Nazarene vows that they vow about, the devotional vow, that you have to maintain your hair, you shouldn't see the dead body, you shouldn't whatever, and they keep it to it. And so we should be able to know that if you are not ready, don't take any woman to the altar. It's not a joke, it's not fancy, it's not people. No. There is a price to pay. You cannot walk into shop right now and pick anything you want and say, I'm going. You will find yourself the next thing at the police station. And so any woman you said, I want to honor this woman, I want to take her to the altar, I want to vow. If you vow, we must keep it. Right. But even now, we the men of God, we are first divorcing and other things. I'm sorry, but we are educating people that we should stick because there's a price to pay. And then do you know what the devil will do lastly? I'm not taking other time, the learned ones will also continue, is that reach a point, the wife that I'm with it now did something. And then the man of God who blessed my marriage at Latavia Koshi Presby, Reverend J. Oboda, retired. And we went to with my wife. And then another time my case, he said, no, this thing they need to cancel. No. I bless the marriage. I ready to cancel. I said, I've lived one first woman, second woman, this third one. They will say that's my life. And now I'm a pastor. And so what I will do is this. I'm ready to pay the price. Whoever she is, either she's bad or good, I've taken a vow and forever I remain. So I can remain an example for my church. So yes, she has done anything that is very this thing I need to reverse, but I stand with my vows and I will walk home and I said, whoever you are, I love you just as we are. I believe with prayer and we can understand each other, there will be a change. And for God's grace, she has changed. There's better, there's a result. She's more than a blessing to me. And so we didn't get, you see, we must first forgive. When you see anybody in the court, they are unforgiving spirit. One is not ready to forgive. Because one question I asked, if people wanted to divorce and they cannot remember their vows, they put vows, everything aside. What has happened? What is your role to play about it? Because there's something you can do about it. You advise others outside and you're not ready to work on your own, especially counselors. And most of the counselors, what they counsel people, they are not ready to practice.
Right, so let me just introduce to you, just gone by was Bishop Ishmael Abuaji of the Victorious Life Chapel. Papa is almost always passionate when it comes to certain issues we're discussing on this platform. Having joined us recently is the man of all trades. Yeah. Watch it. Watch it. Right. Okay. So just go by what's Bishop now with Reverend Oh,
Jonas and your friend.
Right. But say a friend in okay, so we've been trying to find out. We last week we left off from a very interesting point Papa was making. And today we tried continuing from there, zeroing it down on marital vows. You were with us last week. I remember Papa made a point about guys of today in churches promising about 10 girls saying I love you to any of them, and at the end you leave them hanging. So we tried finding out whether the very terms and conditions that permitted one to vary the terms of a contract. Hey.
Today you're on contract.
Today I'm on contract, so I think I'll finish law very soon.
Are you in America?
Right. So, vows, right? So, if the very conditions that permitted one to vary the terms of a vow, I wanted to find out from them, and they have given me their submissions on whether marital vows are permissible to be varied. So let me just also take your thoughts on that same area and see whether yours might be different from many of the ones.
And when you say varied, how do you mean? Okay,
so we've gone to we've done the popping and all that, gone before the altar. I made a vow with my wife, now I told her but I remember I Frederick Okore Jr. take the Sophia now mine to be my whatever
wedded wife.
Yes, to be with you through till death do us part. That is what I said. So having gone through all this, I mean, should any situation at all, should any condition at all be permitted for you to vary those vows you make?
Okay, I just asked for the purpose of clarity to our listeners.
Yeah.
Because from the question you are asking, it's also directly or indirectly is asking the question, at what point can one divorce?
Okay, right. If you choose to put it that literally, that's okay.
Because in terms of the vows, whatever you say in the vows, the center of it or central to it is the fact that you want to remain in that marriage till death do you part. So when you are declining the vows, or when you are reneging on those marriage vows, then you are as well saying that you are terminating the marriage. And that is what it means. Okay, so we first want to look at what the marriage vows at all. We should establish that the marriage vows itself is a Western instituted function, and it has no traces to any Christian form. It's Western Christianity that introduced it. So I'm saying this because we want to appreciate the fact that saying of vows at the wedding has no modular or template in the New Testament church as far as the Bible is concerned.
Okay.
We don't have any. It was I don't want to call it an invention, but a necessary part of the marriage processes that maybe the church, the early church at the time from the Western world, designed it as part of the Western marriage to add it to the marriage sacrament. So it is not a Christian thing to begin with, but the Christian church adapted that to be a part of our marital liturgies. And there are reasons why those were the vows were also initiated, because it was to reveal commitment, verbal commitments that the couple or the lovers were making to each other, declaring their intentions and their purpose and their readiness to be committed to the concept of marriage, to the concept of what it means to love, what it means to live. And so the words that are chosen for them to say as their vows in themselves are biblical. Right? I want to, so that we understand the process. The words are biblical, well thought of, and designed to suit the whole concept of marriage and what it means. So those words, though they do not have any biblical traces as to where a man and a wife comes to the temple and they exchange vows, the words that have been structured for the people to follow are very intentional and purposeful to guide the marriage. So the contents, those words, are not just haphazard. They are not just formalities to begin with when those words were structured. Just like we have the Apostles' Creed, Nicene Creed, they came out well thought of words that were made part of the content of the marriage ceremony, so that by the people saying it, they commit themselves to the very words and their meanings, both in content and in context. So it wasn't designed for formality purposes or just to embellish the whole marriage thing, but it was designed to draw the couple's attention to what the whole marriage thing is about and what is expected of them in simple terms. And that includes a number of things that regard their health, regards their commitment to each other, regarding their fidelity, their faithfulness, their readiness to serve in the marriage, their readiness to live up to their responsibilities by virtue of their gender, their readiness to commit themselves to each other in a mutual strive towards a happy, a lasting, and a fruitful marriage. And that was the purpose. Human beings know how to abuse things because with time, sometimes the way we go about the thing, it begins to lose its original intent. And then the rationale or the power behind it also begins to fade in like manner. So the vows of the marriage, though was not a biblically traced activity, it was structured with a biblical content and a biblical intent to guide the couple into whatever they are committing themselves to. And so that's about it. Now, before I come there, I also want to establish that the real marriage is not in the vows that are said. The real marriage is that decision one makes internally, mentally, emotionally, socially, and to some point the spiritual aspect will come in. Is that decision the person makes to live with the man or the woman with the intent to love, to care, and to continue in a mutual strive towards happiness, peace, and fruitfulness. Because God designed the marriage. If you are looking at the Genesis story, we will understand that marriage was first desired by God when he himself realized that it was not good for the man to be or live alone. To add up, he himself also designed the marriage, how it should be, by bringing the woman to the man. And God himself defends the marriage and said that whatever is put together, let no man put asunder. And he defined it by saying that for this reason, a man will leave his father and mother, cleave to his wife, and the two shall be one. So marriage was designed by God, desired by him. God defends the marriage, and God defines what the marriage should be. So we have this template. How did he decide it? That the man should not be alone. So God established the marriage as a covenant and not a contract.
Right.
He established it as a covenant and not a contract. And for that matter, a relatively permanent covenant. Relative because it is to death do them part. So it is not an everlasting covenant, but a relative covenant that actually ends in death. And till death do them part, it is not permissible to divorce. Of course, God has given other factors on grounds for divorce, and those are there. But the original intent was that the marriage covenant, once people decide to enter into marriage, it was to remain a relatively permanent covenant until death do them part. So the actual commitment to the marriage begins on the day that in your heart you made the decision, even without telling someone or telling any the woman that you love her and you want to spend the rest of your time of your life with her. The second aspect has to do with when you opened your mouth to tell her you love her. That in itself is the beginning of a vow.
Okay.
Because you open your mouth to tell the woman what your intentions are. And all things being equal, you are ready to live with her. So that you don't run away from the fact that you didn't make any vow, because you did not come to the church to make any utterances to God.
Okay.
So you are not committed to any vow.
So once you
saying
speak it out,
the
you've
day
already...
you open your mouth to tell the person you love her,
That is the beginning.
that is the beginning. And that is the proper vow you have made. God being your crown witness that you want to be committed to the other person.
Simple.
So that you don't run away from the fact that you did it at home or you did it somewhere. And therefore, because you didn't come to church to say, yes, I Jonas, whatever, so you didn't make any vow.
So there, I mean, if I'm getting you right, let me just make this point clear, because I think I'm just enjoying that bit. The very moment I open my mouth and tell you I love you, that in itself is a vow.
It's a vow.
Good. Okay.
So the very vows begins on the day you said, and the marriage itself begins on that very day you said you were going to do that.
Contrasting views, but very interesting.
So you don't look at just the church vows to say that you have made you didn't make any vow, so that you even get to a point and say that after all, it is the pastor who wrote those things and brought to me to say them. So I didn't even say it with any seriousness. You have already said that before you brought the person to the altar. The only difference between what you did and what the pastor is doing, that the pastor is doing a more structured and a formal recitation of words to commit you to. But you have already done that. That is why you are bringing the woman to the family or to the church or wherever. So we should understand that the vows is not just those that we do in church, but it begins with what you said to the woman either under the mango tree
or that kind
or in the hen coop or in the corner where you met.
Okay. No, we didn't.
So that with this understanding, everyone that is involved in a marriage or in some marriage has made a vow, whether you brought it to church or not.
Interesting variations to this same question. I think I'm really enjoying this, but I wonder if we'll be able to finish today. But I don't know. I know Papa was gleaning.
Yes. You are in the spirit. You are in the spirit.
So I don't know. I had an interesting question. To ask him, but
no, you can ask and then I'll add to it.
Oh, we'll come back. I've been told I have just less than 10 minutes. I don't think.
Okay.
Yes. I wouldn't want to introduce anything we can, but I was actually thinking we could actually do the causes of present day divorce. Whether there were certain conditions we can actually outline to say, okay, when these conditions are in place, then one, from, if I'm getting it right from Papa's point, from the human point of view, is permitted to divorce, or as they say these days, divorce. So let's glean from there, then we will just do the last bit.
A quick one. Those things are there, and he went and said that my master, if you read, my master had sent me to bring a daughter from this house. So things were said which were promised. They were commitment. So at that time, Isaac didn't say for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer. But something was said, which also still commits the person. And just as he said, it going back to the beginning, in Matthew chapter 19 and Mark chapter 10, Jesus said in the beginning it was not so, because it said, for so shall a man leave his father and mother and cleave unto his wife, and they say the two shall be one. That's Jesus was quoting from the beginning. The beginning, no vows were exchanged. All we saw, which was, so to speak, the marital vow, was that when God gave Eve to Adam said, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. So that was enough to pledge his love and commitment to him. And that was what Jesus himself was referring to, that they cleaved together. And earlier on, I'd mentioned that even when they were sinning, they cleaved to sin together, and they went along. So we must not think that because you have not gone to the altar to say this and it's not binding, your mere act of even picking the person to is a vow enough that we must not break. But also picking from what Bishop also said, that Bishop made a statement that if you don't want trouble, don't send it to God. He was really cautioning us based on Ecclesiastes chapter 5. But that should not let us think that because of that, you wouldn't want to go to the altar or commit yourself to someone. And my problem this day is that it is this is making a lot of people now, they go around impregnating women from here and there, and then they just give birth without marrying. And what I'll say is that nobody is anybody's incubator. So the women, they are not there to incubate children for us. So you move from one person to the other. We must take note of that. And those who are in the practice of that, we must desist from that, because that is breeding irresponsibility, irresponsible men, irresponsible children, irresponsible family, and it is also even affecting our world. So all of us must know the spirit and the essence of marriage is commitment, trying to come together to build a family together. So this is what we must take note of. I said I once sat in a plane with this lady from Namibia who I was just chatting with her, and I was encouraging her that at this age it is time to marry. And the lady told me point blank that she doesn't want to marry. She just wants a man who impregnate her to get a child, and that is not good enough. So we must really take note of this and go about everything in a responsible manner. That is how I'll put it. But to also touch on another thing that Reverend Henrico earlier mentioned, you know, you from the beginning you kept using a contract.
Yes.
The Reverend really said, marriage is a covenant, not a contract, because people have in mind and they put it in a pedestal of a worldly contract, so they think they can go in and then just come out anyway, because contract can be abrogated. It's a covenant, and it's an ordinance that God himself has instituted. And if it's a covenant, we should know that the covenants, Christian covenants or biblical covenants, they are sealed with blood, which makes it so serious. So we must not take things lightly and handle things anyhow. One thing that we did not mention that I want to be quick to add to it is in the New Testament, the condition under which we didn't mention that, but Bible tells us that under condition of infidelity, when somebody has committed adultery or fornication in a marriage, so to speak, that is the circumstance under which you were given the right or the opportunity to abrogate. So it doesn't necessarily mean that even I'm married and I've seen my wife commit adultery, and that because of that, it gives you the permission or the leeway if you opt to. So even in Christian circles, I think it was Bishop who mentioned it earlier, that the whole issue is about forgiveness. At times, a lot of things happen in marriage. People see, so far as we are human beings, the issues will come up. But we must find how we can sort some of these things out. Maybe finally to add to it about this going about impregnating people here and there. It's a concern to me because now some of these things have crept into the church. And I expect these to be happening in the world, where we know people just impregnate this because they want the baby, but now the church is practicing some of these things. Unfortunately, if you go talk about it as a pastor, tomorrow they stop your church and they go to another church, and because the other church also wants members, they welcome the person. But we must be able to straighten some of these things. We must be able to marry properly, because Christianity itself is about commitment. It's about integrity. It's about faithfulness. And when you go to Ephesians chapter 5, Paul likens the marriage, our relationship with Christ, with marriage. So if you don't get it right, even in marriage, we cannot get it right with God. So we must be able to understand some of these things and go the right way. But as I said from the beginning, we are not here to condemn anybody. Sometimes we don't know the circumstances under which somebody divorced, and we must also be very careful how we handle some of these things. But we must encourage each and every one of us to go and do it God's way.
Right. Bishop, final words in 30 seconds so we can just...
Fred, we thank God for this topic. I don't think we've
exhausted
this topic. And what I will say is that those who claim that they walk with him, they must walk as he walked.
Right.
And that is what it is, that there's a price tag to pay for everything. When we were just entering GBC, I saw some people cleaning the place, and I said to my daughter, that I do one thing. You must learn hard and spend time to learn. There's a price to learn, because those who want to go to the top, you pay the price to go to the top. If you want to sell coconut, there's no need of you passing exams in the class. But if you want to get to the top, then there is a price tag. And so people who wanted to live as God live, and we claim we are Christians, and we claim, because in our traditional fathers will only take schnapp and cola nut and other things, and they live
Range Rovers, Papa.
But today we are taking Range Rovers, we are taking other things, we are taking new birthday cars, and yet we are not faithful. We are not honest. And even when they cast us in the day ball light, we would under you are not infidelity, and then we even defend ourselves on air and other things boldly, and then you get people supporting it. No, do you know one thing? Because our marriages, there are problems. The nation will have problems. In politics, we have problems, because integrity starts from the home. Sincerity, devotion, commitment start from the home.
Right.
So long as marriages, we are not showing any commitment and devotion and sacrifice purely as individual level in the individual homes, there's no way our economy or other things will get on track. We need to go back.
Right. Everything put it is 10 seconds. Right.
Let's come back on next week.
Okay, right.
Fred, quickly, let me pick his status again. Bishop said something, and it's very strong, that if you happen to get it wrong the first time, and you go in the second time, make sure that it doesn't go wrong again.
Yeah.
And that's what we call serial monogamism. These days, people marry today, they divorce, they go and marry another person, they divorce, they marry another person. Then when it continues and you are throwing the women away like a takeaway box, then there's a problem somewhere.
Jesus
says something
right.
to that. He said, if a man divorces and marries another woman except for marital unfaithfulness, he commits adultery.
Yeah.
So it means that even when you divorce, the woman still, or the man is still your husband or your wife, still your spouse.
It means you should stay single.
We'll come
So
there.
we'll come there, Fred, because in the kingdom of God, in that kingdom, marriage, what is marriage in the kingdom of God? Because there are other kingdoms and they have their marriages, but in the kingdom of God.
Okay.
Because to the extent that if not for marital unfaithfulness, if you sleep with the woman, you divorce and sleep with another woman, you are committing adultery.
So we should all stay single.
You see yourself blessed because you are adultery.
Right, this is how far we can come on today's edition of your favorite TV series, the Bible series on GTV Live, your religion and culture channel. Like I said earlier, this is the only platform where you get authentic and authoritative Bible knowledge. I mean, take it from me, you wouldn't get it anywhere. These men are just too much when it comes to Bible discussion. So, I mean, today on the program was Bishop Ishmael Abaji of the Victorious Lights Chapel, Bawe, in the Middle City, in the Man on Fire, if anything. Reverend David Nuclear Victory Bible Church International Breakthrough Sanctuary, and the man of all trades, Reverend Jonathan Eku of the Transform Life Ministry. So until I come your way somewhere again next week, my name still remains Frederick Okori Jr. I'll see you with the second part discussion on marital vows. Yes, and I'm hoping we'll be able to finish up. I mean, from the way I'm seeing things. Stay under the canopy of the Holy Spirit and enjoy your week.